Hey guys, tonight we pull on our boots and follow a strange, insistent bark deep into the woods, where the autumn leaves aren't the only thing covering up a dark secret. Imagine the air, crisp and cool, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. You're miles from the nearest road, with only the rustle of unseen things for company. It's a place where a sound that doesn't belong can curdle your blood. A place where a dog's intuition uncovers something human beings try desperately to hide. This one gets under your skin, so you probably shouldn't be listening to this alone. The silence in your own home might start to feel heavy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I see every single one. And while you're at it, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see our little community of night owls spread across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey begins with a man named Mark, a creature of habit in his late 40s. He's a software engineer, a job that keeps him tethered to a screen, so his daily 5-mile hike through the North Peak State Forest isn't just exercise, it's an escape. With him, as always, is Buster, a goofy, perpetually optimistic golden retriever whose main purpose in life seems to be chasing squirrels he will never catch. It's a Tuesday in late October, the canopy above is a riot of golden crimson, and the path underfoot is a soft carpet of fallen leaves. It's perfect, until it isn't. They're on the Osprey Trail, about 2 miles in when Buster suddenly freezes. Not the playful, "I see a squirrel" freeze. This is different. His body goes rigid, the fur along his spine bristling. His ears are pinned back and his tail, usually a metronome of happiness, is tucked low and stiff. Mark stops, clicking his tongue. "Come on, bud. What is it? Bear?" He scans the trees, but there's nothing. Just a gentle sway of branches. Then the sound starts. It's not a bark. Not really. It's a high-pitched, repetitive huff, almost like a cough, filled with an anxiety that feels eerily human, a sound Mark has never heard his dog make in the 7 years they've been together. Buster ignores his owner's commands to heel, instead bolting off the marked path and into a dense grove of hemlock trees where the sunlight barely penetrates. Mark groans, annoyed but also unsettled. He follows, pushing through low-hanging branches that whip at his face. The air here is colder, the ground softer, and there's a smell. It's the first truly odd detail you'd notice. It's not the coppery scent of blood or the foul odor of decay you might expect. It's sweet. Cloyingly sweet, like cheap perfume trying to mask something else, mingling unpleasantly with the natural scent of pine. He finds Buster about 50 yards in, and now you see it too. It's a mound of earth, roughly the size of a door, oblong and crude. The soil is dark and freshly turned, a stark contrast to the mossy, leaf-littered forest floor around it. It's obvious, yet somehow hidden. Mark's logical mind kicks in, trying to rationalize what he's seeing. It's a poacher's dump site, he thinks, or maybe a hunter buried the parts of a deer they didn't want. It's a perfectly reasonable explanation, except for Buster. The dog won't stop his strange, mournful huffing, pawing at the edge of the disturbed soil with a frantic intensity. Mark pulls out his phone. He has 1 bar of service. He hesitates. Is he really going to call 911 because his dog is acting weird and he found a pile of dirt? He'll sound like a lunatic. This is where you see the quiet professionalism of the emergency services. When Mark finally makes the call, his voice is tight, uncertain. He describes his location, the mound, his dog. The 911 dispatcher on the other end, a woman named Sharon, is trained for this. She hears the words, but she's listening to the music behind them. The waver in his voice, the long pauses, the strange, choked barking in the background. She flags the call with a high priority code, not because a man found some dirt, but because a man who sounds genuinely terrified is trying to convince himself he's not. While he's on the line, the ongoing debate about animal testimony flickers through your mind. Experts are still divided on the subject. Can an animal's behavior, outside of highly trained canine units, be considered a reliable indicator of a crime? Some argue that owners often anthropomorphize their pets, projecting their own anxieties onto them. A dog barks at a patch of ground, the owner is already on edge, and suddenly the dog is a key witness. Others, however, point to countless anecdotal cases where an ordinary pet's uncharacteristic behavior was the first sign that something terribly wrong had happened. They argue it's a primal instinct we've lost, a sensitivity to changes in the environment, the scent of adrenaline, the subtle vibrations of a recent disturbance that we can no longer perceive. Buster isn't a trained cadaver dog, but something in this specific spot in the vast woods has hijacked his entire being. The dispatcher tells Mark to return to the trailhead and wait for a patrol car. It's the safest thing to do. He agrees. It's a sensible plan. He gives Buster's leash a firm tug. "Come on, boy, let's go." He turns to leave, to put the strange mound and the cloying smell and his dog's bizarre behavior behind him. He takes one step, and then he stops. The afternoon sun, breaking through the dense canopy in a single focused beam, reflects off something. It's a tiny metallic glint right at the edge of the muddy perimeter, an object that has no business being there. He leans closer, his heart now hammering against his ribs. Half buried in the damp soil, looking as if it had been dropped there only hours ago, is a small, silver locket shaped like a heart. It's perfectly clean, untouched by the dirt it rests in. And in that moment, all of Mark's rationalizations, poachers, buried deer, overactive imagination, evaporate, replaced by a cold, certain dread. He's not leaving. He's standing at the edge of a grave.
The first patrol car arrives within 20 minutes, its tires crunching over fallen branches on a nearby access road. You see a single officer, a young guy named Miller, step out. He moved with the cautious energy of someone who has responded to 100 false alarms, but knows, deep down, that the 101st call might be the one. He finds Mark standing like a statue, a safe distance from the mound, with Buster whining softly at his side. Miller takes one look at Mark's pale face and the dog's posture and knows this isn't a prank call. He approaches the site, his hand resting almost unconsciously on the butt of his sidearm. He sees the disturbed earth, smells that same cloying, sweet floral scent, and then his flashlight beam catches the glint of the locket. That's all it takes. He doesn't touch anything. He doesn't even get any closer. He backs away slowly, pulling out his radio. "Dispatch, have a detective and the forensics unit respond to my location. I'm establishing a perimeter. This is a potential 1056, he says, using the code for a deceased person. The woods, which had been Mark's sanctuary, are now a crime scene. Within the hour, the quiet grove is transformed. The red and blue lights of patrol cars flash silently against the tree trunks, creating a surreal, pulsating light show in the dying afternoon. Yellow tape is strung from tree to tree, a flimsy but legally binding barrier between the world and this dark little patch of soil. The forensics band is parked as close as it can get, and the team in white Tyvek suits moves with quiet, practiced efficiency. The lead detective, a man named Harding, arrives. He's in his 50s, with weary eyes that have seen more than they should have. He listens to Miller's brief report, nods at Mark, who is now sitting in the back of a patrol car, and then turns his full attention to the scene. Harding is a man who trusts his gut, but he builds his cases on facts. He watches as the forensics team begins their work. They photograph everything from every conceivable angle. They take soil samples. They carefully, almost reverently pick up the silver locket using sterile forceps and place it in an evidence bag. This is the start of the chain of custody, a meticulous, unbroken record of every person who handles a piece of evidence. From this moment on, that locket's journey, from the forest floor to the lab to the courtroom, will be documented with signatures, dates, and times. A single gap in that chain, a single forgotten signature, and the defense attorney could argue the evidence was tampered with, rendering it inadmissible in court. The digging begins. It's a slow, painstaking process, done with small trowels and brushes, not shovels. The first twist hits them almost immediately. The grave is shockingly shallow. An adult could have dug it in under an hour. It screams of haste, of panic. It's an amateur's work. Yet, the contents of this clumsy grave suggest something else entirely. They uncover the body of a woman. She's on her back, fully clothed in jeans and a simple gray sweater. But her position is not of someone who was unceremoniously dumped. Her arms are crossed over her chest. Her head is tilted slightly to the side as if she were sleeping. It's a placement of care, of ritual. The sloppiness of the grave clashes violently with the deliberate arrangement of the body. Then comes the second clue, the one that makes everyone stop. Clutched in her right hand, nestled against her chest, is a single white lily. A Casablanca lily, to be precise. It's flawless. Its petals are a brilliant, pristine white without a speck of dirt or a single bruise. The flower is fresh. So fresh, its heavy, sweet fragrance is the source of the perfume Mark had smelled earlier. In the middle of a forest, buried in the dirt, lies a flower that looks like it was just plucked from a high-end florist display case. It's completely out of season for this region, a floral impossibility that feels more like a message than a clue. While one technician carefully bags the lily, another examines the victim's hands. And here, you find the truly bizarre detail. Despite being buried, her hands are immaculate. Her fingernails are clean, filed into perfect ovals and coated in a subtle clear polish. There's no soil under them, no sign of a struggle, no indication she ever touched the earth she was buried in. It's as if she had a manicure right before she was placed in the ground. It's wrong. It's so jarringly, impossibly wrong. This leads directly to a long-standing debate among criminal profilers, the theory of staging. When a killer alters a crime scene, what does it mean? One school of thought argues that staging is the work of a forensically aware offender, someone smart and organized who is actively trying to mislead the investigation. They might plant false evidence, clean up, or, in this case, create a ritualistic tableau to send the police down a rabbit hole looking for a signature killer that doesn't exist. The other theory is that staging is a sign of a disorganized, emotionally volatile killer. In this view, the staging isn't for the police, it's for the killer themselves. It's an act of undoing, an expression of guilt or remorse. The killer can't bring the person back to life, so they try to restore a sense of peace or dignity, arranging the body, placing a flower, trying to erase the violence of their own act. Is this killer a cold, calculating mastermind or a guilt-ridden amateur? The evidence points in both directions at once. Back in the command tent, Harding takes the bagged locket. The team has already dusted it for prints, finding nothing but a few smudges. With gloved hands, he carefully pries it open. He's expecting a clue, a tiny photo of a child, a lover, a pet, something to give them a name, a direction. But inside there is nothing, just two empty polished silver frames, reflecting the harsh light of the forensics lamp. The locket isn't a keepsake, it's a prop, a beautiful, empty symbol. Harding stares at the vacant heart, a shallow grave, a perfect lily, manicured hands, an empty locket. These aren't clues that point to a suspect. They're contradictions designed to break an investigation before it can even begin. The first step is clear. They have to figure out who she is. Who was this woman whose final moments were a carefully constructed paradox of violence and tenderness?
The morgue is a place of cold, sterile facts. While Harding wrestles with the paradox of the crime scene, the victim's identity is already being pulled from a massive government database. Her fingerprints, clean and perfectly preserved, are scanned and uploaded to the Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or AFIS. It's a digital behemoth, cross-referencing millions of prints from criminal records, government employment, and military service. You imagine the algorithm churning, sifting through a sea of whorls and loops. In less than an hour, it finds a match. Her name is Sarah Jenkins, age 32, and her print is on file because she's a state employee. She's a children's librarian at the city's main branch. A librarian. The irony hangs in the air, thick and heavy. A woman who spent her days in the quiet, orderly world of books, surrounded by the innocent wonder of children, ends up buried like a secret in the woods. This is where the job gets personal. Harding have to perform a next of kin notification. It's a legal and procedural necessity, one of the most difficult tasks in law enforcement. There's a protocol for it. Always in person, always with a partner, never over the phone. You deliver the news with as much compassion as you can muster, but you're also observing. Grief is a raw, unpredictable thing, but it can also be a mask.
Harding and his partner drive to the address listed on Sarah's employment file, a neat little apartment in a quiet, tree-lined suburb. The door is answered by a man named Alex Thorne. He's her fiancé. He's exactly the kind of guy you'd picture with a sweet librarian. Handsome in a clean-cut way with a warm smile that falters when he sees two stone-faced detectives on his doorstep. The moment Harding introduces himself, you see the color drain from Alex's face. His performance of grief is flawless. He collapses onto the couch, head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. He asks the right questions, his voice choked. How? Where? Was she in pain? Harding gives him the sanitized version, leaving out the lily, the locket, the manicured hands. Those details are now hold-back information. Facts known only to the killer and the police. A powerful tool for vetting false confessions and tripping up a liar. In their formal interview later that day, Alex paints a picture of a perfect life. They were planning a wedding for the spring. He shows them photos on his phone, the two of them smiling on a beach, carving pumpkins, looking happy, normal. He says Sarah had been a little anxious lately, more withdrawn. He chalked it up to stress at the library, a new archiving system she was struggling with. He's helpful, cooperative, the very model of a grieving partner. When Harding asks about the Casablanca lily, Alex looks genuinely confused. Lilies? Sarah was allergic. Not a terrible allergy, but she'd never have them in the house. She preferred daisies. Twist number 1. The killer's ritualistic gift was something the victim wouldn't even have wanted. Then he shows him a photo of the locket. Alex shakes his head. I've never seen that before. It's not hers. I bought her a necklace for her last birthday, a sapphire pendant. She wore it every day. He points to his own neck where the faint line of a tan shows where Sarah's necklace used to be in the photos. He's a good witness, almost too good. The next interview is with Sarah's best friend, a sharp, cynical art gallery owner named Chloe. And this is where the perfect picture starts to crack. Chloe cries, but her tears are laced with anger. I knew something was wrong, she says, her hands clenched into fists. She was terrified. Chloe tells them Sarah's anxiety wasn't about work. For the last 6 months, Sarah had been a ghost, canceling plans, jumping at shadows, and then Chloe delivers the line that changes the entire investigation. She had another phone, a cheap prepaid burner phone. This is the moment the case pivots. You have the professional persona, the quiet librarian, and now the secret one. This is where investigators enter the murky waters of victimology. It's a field rife with debate. Does a victim's secret life provide a motive, or does it merely make them more vulnerable? One theory suggests that by engaging in risky, clandestine behavior, the victim inadvertently invited danger into their life. Following this logic, the burner phone points to a secret world, an affair, a debt, something illegal that led directly to her death. The other, more modern perspective argues against blaming the victim. It posits that a person's secrets don't justify their murder. They're simply vulnerabilities that a predator, who may be entirely unrelated to that secret life, can exploit. Was Sarah killed by someone from her secret life? Or was her fear and secrecy just a tragic coincidence that made her an easier target for someone else? Chloe doesn't know what the phone was for, only that Sarah guarded it with her life. She saw it once, a cheap plastic thing that Sarah quickly hid, her face pale with panic. She has no idea where Sarah kept it. The detective stank her and turned back to Alex, the helpful fiancé. Harding asks him about a second phone. Alex's confusion looks genuine. A second phone? Why would she need that? We shared everything. He's so convincing, so open. To prove it, he gives them written consent to search the apartment they shared. It's a generous, helpful gesture. And it's the biggest mistake he could possibly make. The forensics team goes through Sarah's apartment with a fine-tooth comb. It's exactly as you'd expect. Neat, organized, filled with books. There's no sign of a struggle, no hidden compartments, nothing out of place. It's the apartment of a woman with nothing to hide. For hours, they find nothing. They're about to give up. Then a young officer, almost as an afterthought, starts pulling books from a tall shelf in the bedroom. He's checking for hollowed-out hiding places. He picks up a beautiful leather-bound copy of Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. And it feels light, too light. This is the odd, unusual detail that cracks it all open. He opens the cover. Inside, the pages have been meticulously cut out, forming a small rectangular cavity. And nestled inside, on a bed of excised words about wicked witches and enchanted forests, is a small black burner phone. The irony is staggering. A tool for a modern dark secret hidden inside the original dark fairy tales, all masked by an identity of childlike innocence. Harding takes the phone, its plastic screen cold and blank. He holds the key to Sarah's double life. Now, he just needs to find a way to turn it on.
With the discovery of the burner phone, the investigation now has a tangible secret to chase. But a phone is a fortress. Without a passcode, it's just a plastic brick. While the digital forensics unit gets to work trying to crack it, Detective Harding decides to circle back to the one person at the center of this perfect, crumbling picture, Alex Thorne. You have to remember, at this point, he's still the grieving fiancé in the eyes of the public. He's been cooperative, forthcoming, and has an alibi. But Harding's gut, that finely tuned instrument honed by 2 decades of lies, is screaming. Alex's alibi is solid. On the night the medical examiner estimates Sarah was killed, he was at a high-stakes poker game with his business partner and 3 other friends. He runs a successful architectural firm, and these games were a regular tradition. All 5 men at the table, including his partner, Liam, confirm he was there from 7 p.m. until well after 2 a.m. They laughed, they drank expensive whiskey. Alex lost a few $100s. They all tell the exact same story. It's an airtight alibi, verified by 5 separate witnesses. Case closed on Alex, right? But a good detective knows that an alibi is only as strong as its weakest link. Harding starts digging into Alex, not as a suspect, but just as part of the routine background check on the victim's inner circle. He pulls his financials, his work history, his phone records. Everything is clean. Alex Thorne is a model citizen. He's charismatic, successful, and by all accounts, deeply in love with Sarah. There's nothing there. It's a dead end. Then comes the first crack. It's almost nothing. Harding is reviewing the crime scene photos again late at night, letting the images burn into his memory. He's looking at a wide shot of the perimeter, where the forest floor is churned up by the boots of the first responders. His eyes drift to a single, clear boot print in a patch of mud, near the grave, but just outside the primary search area. It was photographed and documented, but initially dismissed as likely belonging to Mark, the hiker, or Officer Miller. But now, looking at it for the 10th time, Harding notices something. The tread pattern is distinctive, a deep, aggressive lug sole with a small circular logo embedded in the heel. It's the mark of a specific brand of high-end expensive work boot, the kind an architect who visits construction sites might wear. It's a long shot, a needle in the haystack, but it's something. Harding sends a uniformed officer back to Alex's apartment with a simple, non-threatening request. "Sir, we're trying to eliminate footwear impressions from the scene. Would you mind showing us the shoes you were wearing the day you last saw Sarah?" It's a soft approach, a common police technique. It's not an accusation, it's a request for help. Alex, ever the cooperative citizen, obliges. He leads the officer to his closet and points to a pair of stylish loafers. "These, I think." The officer thanks him and leaves. He doesn't ask to see any other shoes. He doesn't need to, because while Alex was talking, the officer's gaze drifted to the back of the closet, where a pair of dark leather work boots were tucked away, their soles caked in what looked like dried mud. He didn't say a word. He just saw them. The next day, Harding gets a warrant. This time, when he knocks on Alex's door, it's not a request. It's a full-blown search. Alex's mask of calm finally slips. The color drains from his face, replaced by a flicker of panic. "This is insane. I've given you everything," he protests. But his words are hollow. The team goes straight to the closet and seizes the boots. They are a perfect match to the print found at the edge of the grave. The existence of the boot print brings up a fascinating legal event, the Frye Standard, and its more modern successor, the Daubert Standard. These are the rules that govern whether expert testimony, like a footwear impression comparison, can be admitted in court. Under the old Frye Standard, a scientific technique had to be generally accepted by the relevant scientific community. It was a high bar. The Daubert Standard, now used in federal courts in most states, is more flexible. A judge acts as a gatekeeper and assesses the methodology, the rate of error, the peer review, and the general acceptance.
The analysis of a boot print is a classic example. An expert can't say with 100% certainty that Alex's boot made that print, but they can testify that the print is consistent with his boot in size, wear pattern, and brand to a high degree of probability. It's not a smoking gun, but it demolishes Alex's claim that he was never in that forest. Alex is brought in for another interview. This time, the room is colder, the questions sharper. Harding lays out the evidence. Your boot print was found near where we found Sarah's body, Alex. You want to tell me how it got there? Alex's story shifts. The calm composure is gone, replaced by a frantic energy. He now remembers something. He and Sarah had a fight a few days before she disappeared, a bad one. He went for a drive to clear his head, ended up at North Peak State Forest, went for a short walk. He must have left the print then. It's a plausible lie. It accounts for the print, but it's a lie born of desperation. Harding leans forward. A fight about what, Alex? And here comes the second twist. Alex hesitates, then says, money. I made a bad investment, lost a lot of our savings. She was furious. It's a good motive. It fits. A fight about money escalates the violence. It's a classic, tragic story. Harding seems to accept it. He asks Alex to write down a timeline of that day, the day of the alleged fight and his solo hike. Alex agrees, meticulously writing out his story. But Harding already knows he's lying, because just before this interview, Harding had a quiet chat with Alex's business partner, Liam. Liam, under the pressure of a potential accessory charge for providing a false alibi, admitted something small, but significant. The poker game was real, but Alex was late. He didn't arrive at 7 p.m. He showed up around 9:30 p.m., looking flustered, his face pale and sweaty. He claimed he'd been stuck in a nightmarish traffic jam. The others, not wanting to make a scene, just went along with it when the police first called. They covered for him. The airtight alibi now has a 2.5-hour hole in it, the exact window of time the Emmy said Sarah Jenkins died. Alex's lie about the money might be a cover for something, but his lie about the alibi is a direct link to the murder, and Harding now has his written statement, a document full of provable lies. The final odd detail is the pen Alex uses. He clicks it open and closed, a nervous habit. It's a high-end silver fountain pen, the kind an architect would use. And as he watches him sign his false statement, he can't help but think of another piece of silver, a small, empty locket, dropped carefully at the edge of a grave.
While Alex Thorne is busy weaving a web of lies about phantom hikes and financial squabbles, the digital forensics team finally gets a breakthrough. Cracking a modern smartphone, even a cheap burner, isn't like in the movies. You can't just type "override" into a blinking cursor. It often involves exploiting a known vulnerability in the phone's operating system, or in this case, using a powerful piece of hardware, a gray box, that systematically brute forces thousands of passcode combinations per second. After 2 days of relentless work, the phone's 4-digit PIN gives way. The screen flashes to life, revealing Sarah Jenkins' secret world. The contents are sparse but chilling. There are no photos, no apps, no web browser history. The phone had one purpose: communication. The call log shows dozens of calls, all to and from a single unlisted number. The text messages tell the real story. Scrolling back months, the messages from the unknown number are demanding, controlling, and increasingly menacing. You know the rules. Don't be late. Did you think I wouldn't find out? You owe me, and I always collect. Sarah's replies are minimal, terrified. Okay, I'm sorry. Please, I just need more time. It's a classic narrative of coercion and fear. Harding gets a warrant for the records associated with the other number. This is where you see the power of digital evidence. A subpoena is served to the cell provider, a legal event known as a tower dump, or a request for subscriber information. The provider is legally compelled to turn over the name and address associated with the account, along with the phone's location data. When the report comes back, it delivers the first major twist of the section. The number doesn't belong to a loan shark, a drug dealer, or a secret lover. It belongs to Liam, Alex's business partner. The same man who first corroborated Alex's alibi, then created the 2.5-hour hole in it.
Suddenly, the poker game alibi looks less like friends covering for a buddy who was late, and more like a conspiracy. Harding brings Liam in again. This time, the friendly chat is over. Liam is read his Miranda rights. He's a smart guy. An architect used to being in control. He lawyers up immediately. But the evidence is piling up. The burner phone texts, his initial false alibi, his proximity to both Sarah and Alex. He's caught. While Liam is in a holding cell talking to his lawyer, Harding's team executes a search warrant on Liam's home and office. They're looking for anything: a weapon, muddy clothes, a Casablanca Lily receipt. They find none of that. What they do find is far more damning. On his work computer, a forensic analyst uncovers his search history. It's a digital roadmap of a guilty mind. In the week leading up to Sarah's murder, Liam had searched for how to soundproof a basement, North Peak State Forest access roads, how deep to bury a body, and most chillingly, Casablanca Lily symbolism. The search results for that last one would have told him they symbolize purity, majesty, and in some contexts, rebirth and the restoration of innocence. The flower wasn't random. It was researched. It was a deliberate, calculated part of the staging. This discovery brings up a heated legal debate surrounding digital evidence. Can a person's search history be used to prove intent? Defense attorneys often argue that these searches are taken out of context. A person might be a crime writer, a student, or just morbidly curious. They invoke the curiosity defense, suggesting that thoughts and searches are not crimes. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argue that when these searches align perfectly with the facts of a specific crime, they form a powerful pattern of mens rea, the mental state of intent to commit a crime. Liam wasn't just curious about lilies, he was curious about them right before one appeared clutched in a dead woman's hand. Faced with the text from the burner phone and his own incriminating search history, Liam's lawyer advises him to talk. He's looking at a life sentence. His only way out is a deal. Liam agrees to tell them everything. But his story is not the straightforward confession Harding expects. This is the second twist. Liam admits he was blackmailing Sarah, but he claims it wasn't his idea. He says Alex was the mastermind. According to Liam, Alex had discovered a secret from Sarah's past, something that happened long before they met. Sarah, as a teenager, had been involved in a tragic hit-and-run accident. She was driving without a license, panicked, and fled the scene. An elderly man was killed. She was never caught, and she lived with the crushing guilt her entire life. It was a secret she thought was buried forever, but somehow Alex found out. Liam doesn't know how. He just knows that Alex saw it not as a tragedy, but as leverage. The final odd detail emerges from Liam's confession. He describes the dynamic between him and Alex not as a partnership, but as a form of servitude. Years ago, Alex had saved Liam's career, covering up a massive architectural error Liam made that would have bankrupted him and landed him in prison. Since then, Alex had held that over him, demanding absolute loyalty, using him to do his dirty work. The blackmail scheme was Alex's design. He had Liam make the calls, send the texts, and collect the money from Sarah. Alex wanted to control her, to ensure she would never leave him, using her own past as a cage. It was a sick, twisted form of emotional abuse, with Liam as the unwilling instrument. Alex never got his own hands dirty. He was always one step removed, the puppet master pulling the strings. Liam claims that on the night of the murder, Alex told him the plan had changed. Sarah was becoming unpredictable, a liability. Alex instructed him to lure her to the forest on the pretense of a final payoff. Liam swears he never touched her. He says he waited in the car while Alex walked her into the woods. He heard them arguing, then a scream, then silence. Alex returned 20 minutes later, alone, and told him to drive and to keep his mouth shut. The poker game alibi was Alex's idea, a pre-planned piece of theater to solidify their story. Liam's confession paints Alex not just as a killer, but as a cold, manipulative sociopath who orchestrates crimes from a distance, using others as his tools. The question for Harding now is Liam telling the truth, or is he a cornered killer trying to shift the blame to a man he secretly resents? He has the accomplice.
Now he has to prove who the real monster is. Liam's confession shifts the entire gravitational pull of the case. Suddenly, Alex Thorne isn't just the prime suspect. He's a potential master manipulator, a villain hiding in plain sight. But Liam's story, as compelling as it is still just that, a story. In the American legal system, the testimony of an accomplice is notoriously problematic. Juries are often instructed to view it with caution and skepticism. An accomplice has every reason to lie, to minimize their own role and shift the bulk of the blame to someone else in exchange for a lighter sentence. This is known as a proffer agreement, a legal event where a defendant agrees to provide information to the prosecution. Liam is singing for a deal, and Harding knows it. He needs more than one desperate man's word to convict a charismatic architect like Alex. The focus of the investigation now becomes a desperate search for corroboration. They need something physical, something undeniable, to tie Alex directly to the murder and validate Liam's terrifying account. The team re-examines every piece of evidence through this new lens. They tear apart Alex's life, his finances, his communications, his past. They're looking for the origin of the secret. How did Alex discover Sarah's juvenile hit and run? They comb through his digital life again, this time with a new search warrant that is broader in scope. They look at his bank records, searching for payments to private investigators. Nothing. They check library records, old newspaper archives. Nothing. Alex is a digital ghost when it comes to Sarah's past. It's as if the information just fell into his lap. This is the first frustrating twist. The source of Alex's leverage remains a complete mystery, a loose thread that may never be tied. The detectives turn their attention back to the crime scene, specifically to the staging, the manicured hands, the empty locket, the researched lily. Harding always felt it was too elaborate for a simple crime of passion. Now, with Liam's story, it makes a twisted kind of sense. It wasn't an act of remorse, it was an act of supreme arrogance. It was Alex, the architect, designing a final, perfect scene, a macabre work of art. The lily, symbolizing the restoration of innocence, was a sick, ironic commentary on the secret he used to control Sarah. He wasn't just killing her, he was making a statement. This is where profilers and investigators often debate the concept of the master-servant dynamic in crime. Is it possible for one dominant personality to so completely control another that they can compel them to participate in murder? The theory holds that these manipulative individuals, often exhibiting narcissistic or sociopathic traits, are skilled at identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities in others. They create a powerful bond built on debt, fear, or a twisted form of loyalty. The servant, or accomplice, often has a diminished sense of self and becomes an extension of the master's will. Liam's story about being saved from professional ruin by Alex fits this profile perfectly. He was a pawn, trapped in a game he didn't understand until it was too late. The breakthrough comes from an unexpected place. It's not from a computer or a bank statement, but from a piece of old-fashioned police work. Harding decides to re-interview Chloe, Sarah's sharp-witted best friend. He doesn't tell her about Liam's confession. He simply asks her to think back, to recall any small, odd detail about Alex's behavior. Chloe thinks for a long time. Then her eyes widen. She remembers something from about a year ago, right before Sarah's secretive behavior began. It's the unusual detail that ties it all together. Chloe tells them about Sarah's mother, who had passed away 2 years prior. After her death, Sarah had to clean out her mother's house. She was overwhelmed, so Alex, being the perfect fiancé, offered to help. He spent a weekend boxing up old belongings, hauling things to the dump, organizing keepsakes. Chloe remembers Sarah saying how wonderful he was, how he handled everything so she wouldn't have to. He even found her old teenage diaries, Chloe says. Sarah was mortified, wanted to burn them, but Alex insisted they keep them, for sentimental reasons. He packed them away himself in a box labeled Memories for the attic. Harding feels a jolt of electricity. He gets another warrant, the third one for Alex's home, and this time they head straight for the attic. Tucked away in a dusty corner is a cardboard box, and on the side, in Alex's neat architectural handwriting, is the word Memories.
Inside, beneath old photo albums and school yearbooks, are 3 small spiral-bound notebooks, Sarah Jenkins' teenage diaries. A forensic officer wearing gloves leafs through the brittle pages, and there it is, a multi-page entry written in the frantic, looping cursive of a scared 16-year-old describing the night of the hit and run with agonizing detail. The screech of tires, the sickening thud, the crushing guilt. Alex didn't need a private investigator. He found Sarah's darkest secret sitting in a box, and instead of comforting her, he weaponized it. This is the corroboration Harding needed. Alex's possession of the diaries provides a clear, demonstrable link to the blackmail motive. It proves he knew the secret, and it makes Liam's story about Alex being the mastermind infinitely more credible. The final, chilling twist comes when the lab analyzes the box itself. They use a technique called vacuum metal deposition, a highly sensitive method for recovering fingerprints from porous surfaces like cardboard. They find Liam's prints all over the box, which makes sense if he helped move it. But on the bottom of the box, preserved in the dry attic air, they find a single, partial thumbprint that doesn't belong to Liam, Sarah, or Alex. After running it through APHIS, they get a hit. The print belongs to a man named David Miller, a small-time burglar with a string of priors for breaking and entering. His last known address was less than a mile from Sarah's late mother's house. He was arrested for a different burglary a week after Alex had supposedly been helping Sarah clean up. He was a loose end, a man who might have seen something, who might have known that Alex hadn't just found the diaries, but had likely stolen them during a staged break-in to cover his tracks. David Miller, the burglar, has been missing for the last 8 months. Suddenly, Harding realizes he's not just investigating one murder, he's potentially stumbled upon a second, much older crime, orchestrated by a man who will do anything to maintain his perfect life.
The trial of Alex Thorne becomes a media sensation. It has all the elements of a primetime thriller. A beautiful librarian, a secret past, a handsome and successful fiancé turned accused mastermind, and a star witness who is also an accomplice to the crime. The courtroom is packed every day. You can feel the tension, a thick, palpable thing that hangs in the air between the prosecution's table and the defense. Alex sits there, immaculate in a tailored suit, looking more like a concerned spectator than a man on trial for murder. His face is a carefully composed mask of calm confidence. He whispers to his high-priced defense attorney, occasionally shaking his head with an air of dignified disbelief. The prosecution's case hinges on the testimony of Liam. When he takes the stand, he's a changed man. The confident architect is gone, replaced by a gaunt, nervous figure who can't make eye contact with Alex. The prosecutor walks him through the entire sordid story. Alex's discovery of the diaries, the blackmail scheme, the coercion, and the final, fatal night in the woods. He describes how Alex planned every detail, including the staged poker game alibi and the symbolic lily. He called it poetry, Liam says, his voice barely a whisper. He said it needed to be a perfect ending to her tragic story. Alex's defense attorney is brilliant. During cross-examination, he paints Liam as a desperate, spurned partner and a pathological liar. He brings up Liam's own professional disgrace, the one Alex saved him from, suggesting Liam harbored a deep-seated resentment. "Isn't it true, Mr. Liam, that you were in love with Sarah Jenkins?" the attorney thunders. Liam denies it, but the seed of doubt is planted. "Isn't it true that you were the one who was obsessed with her past? That you searched for the symbolism of lilies because you were the one creating a twisted shrine? That you killed her in a jealous rage and are now trying to pin it on the man who saved your career?" The strategy is classic. Discredit the star witness, turn him into the real monster. The legal debate over accomplished testimony plays out in real time. The judge gives the jury a specific instruction, legally known as a cautionary charge, warning them that the testimony of an accomplice who has received a promise of leniency must be weighed with great care and scrutinized for a self-serving motive. The entire case could falter if the jury decides Liam is an unreliable narrator.
The prosecution needs more. They need to anchor Liam's story to the physical evidence. They present the boot print, with an expert testifying it's a match to Alex's boot. The defense counters that Alex already admitted to being in the woods on a different day. They present the burner phone texts, but the defense argues Liam sent them all. They present the diaries, but the defense claims Sarah gave them to Alex willingly, a sign of ultimate trust, and it was Liam who betrayed that trust. For every piece of evidence, the defense has a plausible alternative explanation. Alex Thorne, the master manipulator, is slipping away. The turning point, the moment that swings the momentum of the trial, comes from the most unexpected of witnesses. The prosecution calls Mark, the hiker who found the body. He's just there to establish the facts of the discovery. He's nervous on the stand, a regular guy thrust into a legal nightmare. The prosecutor has him describe his walk, the woods, the mound of earth. Then he asks about his dog. "Tell the jury about Buster, Mr. Mark." Mark describes Buster's strange behavior. "It wasn't a normal bark," he says, his voice gaining confidence as he talks about his dog. "It was a sound of distress, of wrongness." During cross-examination, Alex's lawyer sneers. "A sound of wrongness? Mr. Mark, are you a veterinarian? A canine behaviorist?" "No, sir," Mark says simply. "I'm just his owner." He tries to dismiss him, to make him and his dog seem foolish, but the strategy backfires. The jury isn't made up of lawyers, it's made up of people like Mark, people who have pets, who understand the unspoken bond between a human and an animal. The story of Buster's unnatural, insistent bark resonates in a way that legal arguments do not. The final odd detail of the trial is an evidentiary ruling. The prosecution wants to introduce the evidence of the missing burglar, David Miller, whose fingerprint was on the bottom of the diary box. They want to argue that Alex is responsible for his disappearance to show a pattern of eliminating threats. This is a request to introduce prior bad acts evidence, a fiercely debated legal issue. The judge, in a controversial decision, rules against it. He deems it too prejudicial, arguing that it would invite the jury to convict Alex based on a separate, unproven crime, poisoning the well. It's a huge blow for the prosecution. The story of the missing burglar, David Miller, will never be heard by the jury. It all comes down to the closing arguments. The defense paints Alex as the victim of a vindictive liar. The prosecution, in a brilliant move, ends their closing statement not by talking about Alex, but by talking about Buster. Alex Thorne is a meticulous planner, the prosecutor says, his voice low and steady. He created a perfect crime. He controlled every person, every detail, every alibi. He thought of everything. But he forgot about the one thing he couldn't control. He couldn't account for the loyalty of a good dog. He couldn't plan for an animal's simple, honest instinct that something was terribly, terribly wrong in those woods. The jury deliberates for 3 days. The tension is unbearable. When they finally file back in, the foreman hands the verdict to the bailiff. You watch Alex's face. The mask is still there, but it's cracking. He's adjusting his tie, a small, nervous gesture. The foreman clears his throat and reads the verdict. On the charge of murder in first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Alex Thorne, guilty. A gasp sucks the air out of the courtroom. Alex sways, his perfect composure shattering like glass. His face, for the first time, shows not arrogance or confidence, but pure, unadulterated shock. He truly believed he was going to walk away. The verdict was born from a chain of evidence that all started with a strange bark in the woods, a sound of pure instinct that unraveled a world of pure evil. As the courtroom doors close behind a convicted Alex Thorne, the ripples of his calculated evil slowly begin to settle. The story doesn't truly end with the verdict, it lingers in the lives of those he touched. Liam receives a reduced sentence for his cooperation, but he will forever carry the weight of his complicity, a man who lost his moral compass in the shadow of another's darkness. Chloe, the loyal friend, finds a way to honor Sarah's memory, dedicating a children's reading garden at her gallery, ensuring Sarah's love for books creates a legacy of light, not shadow. And Mark, the hiker, finds that his walks in the North Peak woods are different now. He and Buster still take the Osprey Trail, but there's a new solemnity to their steps, a shared understanding of the secrets the earth can hold. The case of the missing burglar, David Miller, is officially reopened, with Alex Thorne as the prime suspect, a chilling postscript suggesting that Sarah's grave may not have been his first. The questions that remain, the unproven crimes, the depths of his manipulation fade into the quiet hum of the justice system, leaving behind a cautionary tale. It's a story that reminds us that the most monstrous villains are often the ones who wear the most convincing masks of normalcy, and that sometimes the simplest truth can only be recognized by the purest instinct.